Hey everybody. This week I wanted to talk about a little bit of infraart, and I wanted to talk about the concept of the difference between songwriting and composing, because there's a little bit of a distinction there in my mind anyway, and it also folds in very nicely to the music link that I want to share with you at the end of the video. Composition is a very general musical term that I think most people would think of as anything as composing. And if you're writing classical music, traditional classical music that doesn't have lyrics, that's certainly what people think of as composing. Personally, I think if someone sits down with a guitar, if a rock band gets together and writes music together, I think of that as composing. And that, of course, can include lyrics in it. But I think kind of a neat little distinction to make is if we think of composition as focusing on the music and sort of lyricism as focusing on the lyrics, and then songwriting being the interaction of the two. Someone who can write really excellent lyrics that stand on their own is truly a poet. And obviously there have been many, many songwriters whose lyrics are just so brilliant all by themselves. Bob Dylan probably being the classic contemporary example, of someone who was just an amazing poet, and not just a lyricist, but just someone who could probably just have the lyrics stand completely on their own. And then, of course, the composition side has to do a lot with musical elements in terms of, the melodies, the harmonies, the timbres that are used, the instrumentation that are used, and of course then that starts to head off in the direction also of production, which is then taking the composition and realizing it into the form of a recording or a live performance, and how do you go about doing that? And of course some aspect of production can be additional composition, right? Adding parts, adding backgrounds, arranging harmonies. I think of a producer like Jeff Elbell, who's a good friend of mine who helped on Drowning in Sky, and Brian Lilly, who was our main producer on Drowning in Sky, and both of them were excellent at adding parts and coming up with things to make the songs more intricate. So there's an aspect of composition in production to some degree. But when we talk about songwriting, in my view, songwriting has to do with how the composition and the lyricism come together. The artist that I'm going to talk about at the end of the video is a master of this. And what it's all about, in my view, is using the musical elements to deliver the lyrical message. And the lyrical message may have parts that you want to emphasize. They may have parts that you want to de-emphasize, maybe. They have parts that you want to link a certain lyrical line to an emotion that you're going to convey in the music. And this has to do with the vocal delivery as well. So places where the music might swell or the melody might soar or the vocals might be delivered in some very emotional way, emphasize the lyrics that are being delivered at that time. And I believe that there is an art to that in and of itself. And that is what I think of as really the art of songwriting. And I think it's important because we have hundreds and hundreds of years of music that have been written. Obviously, we're now passing the mark of having 100 years of recorded music. And there's a lot of stuff out there. And it's a fair question to ask, well, what's new? How much music can we make before we start to just trot over the same ground over and over again? And I think that because lyricism has almost an endless dimension to it, songwriting therefore has an endless dimension to it. You might argue that some of the songs that are written are kind of the same old chords or sort of melodies that are sort of well-worn Western music ideas or what have you, but how those musical ideas are married now to the lyrical world really keeps the field pretty wide open for what can be created and what messages can be delivered with music. So I think that this idea of poetics or lyricism and composition now coming together in the art of songwriting is sort of a valid point of discussion. I mean, I'm sort of thinking out loud here, so I'm curious what other people think. But the reason I bring this up is because I think it's a great dovetail into our music link for the week, which I'm going to share with you in just a minute. Thanks much, and talk to you soon. Okay, for this week's music link, I want to introduce you to an artist that was introduced to me maybe about 10 years ago. Her name is Vienna Teng, and she's a singer-songwriter, probably the best way to describe it. You know, she kind of edges into the pop and rock world a little bit, but also has a lot more traditional, kind of laid-back, you know, just very beautiful songs. The reason that I really am inspired by her work is because I consider her a master of songwriting. Now, Vienna Teng is very multi-talented, and she really has a lot of fantastic qualities about her musically. A lot of people talk about what a fantastic pianist she is, and and what a beautiful voice she has, and her vocal delivery is brilliant. And it is. These things are absolutely valid. She's a fantastic performer across the board. But what's really interesting, what I get caught up in, what I can't get over, is how brilliant her songwriting is. And she is truly a master of using the music that she writes to deliver the lyrics that she writes. And her lyrics are very strong, and her music is fantastic. And as I mentioned, her performance is fantastic. But she uses all these together in what I believe is mastery of songwriting. Her first studio album is called Waking Hour. This is one of those albums that I listen to and go, why do I even bother like writing music? You know, as an artist, you sometimes every once in a while hear a song and go, wow, I could go my whole life and never write that song. Well, she's got like 3 of them on here. So it's very inspiring. A little bit depressing as an artist, but it's a fantastic record. Unfortunately, this is not a record that's available on Bandcamp or any place where you can kind of check out the whole album. But one of the best tracks on the record, Gravity, there's a video for on YouTube, and I will put that link here. The video is kind of interesting and artistic, but the music is I think just really fantastic. It's a fantastic example of her work. Her most recent album, this I believe is her 5th studio album, called Aims. This is available on Bandcamp, and you can listen to the whole thing from top to bottom. This is also a fantastic example of how much she progresses as an artist, that she's not afraid to try new ideas and mature and do different things. This album has a lot more breadth of production on it, a lot more diversity to it. It's got some real classic Vienna Teng kind of songs on it, but then it's also got some stuff that really pushes into the bounds of very modern pop kind of sounds. But throughout all of it, again, brilliant songwriting. There's a video also for this out on YouTube for kind of the single off the record called Level Up. There's a song called Land Sailor that I think is absolutely brilliant. The Hymn of Axiom, if you want to check that one out, track 5 is this fantastic, it's a cappella, but there are treatments on the voices that make them sound kind of synthetic and ethereal, and it's kind of spooky, actually. You know, and then you've got songs like Goodnight New York, the closing track of the record, which is sort of just classic laid-back Vienna Teng, just brilliantly executed, you know, songwriting. So I hope you enjoy that. I hope you find some things there that you like. Vienna Teng, definitely an artist that has been an inspiration to me as really trying to push the limits of my own songwriting skill.